We are recording. Hello, people. Hello, people watching the replay on March 23rd. This is your pal Dano. We're talking about ukuleles. The whole point of our office hours, as you know, is to allow you the opportunity to ask questions, to get feedback on any troubles you might be having with our daily uke club lessons or the ongoing secondary uke club things. So feel free to type in a question if you have one. You can use the chat box off to the side. Feel free to request a seat if you'd like to come on and talk with me in person on camera. That's always very exciting for me anyway. So I'll keep an eye on the questions as we go, if any come up. And as always, since questions are usually at a minimum, I'd like to have a little something prepared for you. So we feel like we've got a raison d'etre for our early morning get-togethers. Early morning for me, anyway. So what I've worked out for us today is a nice little chord progression that I thought I would share with you. I like it because there is great value in learning chord progressions by sound, by ear, and by memory. They're completely wrapped up in each other. But by memorizing it, you understand the technical aspect of what you're trying to achieve. By hearing it and knowing it and having it be familiar, then you can understand and detect if you're doing it right or doing it wrong, or if you want to make changes on the fly. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about this nice little chord progression that you've heard in 100 different songs. I'm going to do it in D minor. I did it wrong. Start over. Take two. So it's going to go. There we go. Sound familiar? Can anybody place it? Give me a song that has that sound. I'll do it a couple more times so you get it in your ear. And you're not allowed to say one meatball because I already put it in the notes. It is one meatball. It's black and yellow stray cats sitting on a fence. Ooh. It's the kids' song. The cat came back the very next day. Dum, bum, bum, ba-da-da-dum. It's a couple of Cab Calloway songs, but I can't put my finger on any specific names. And I think it's a couple of Glenn Miller songs, but it may be Glenn Miller copying Cab Calloway. Yeah, Minnie the Moocher is close. And I'll scratch that, Jerry. It's Walk, Don't Run-ish. So there's St. James. Yeah, we're real close to St. James Infirmary Blues. That's interesting. I was just working on that one last night. Maybe that's why I have it in my mind. So the value to this is that, sure, in itself, it's a common little walk down. Once you understand how it works, and that's what I'm going to show you here in just a second, is once you understand how it's put together, you can incorporate it into other songs where it's not the main thing. The thing about the way I just demonstrated it for you in a song like, the Stray Cat Strut is that's the whole song. But like so many of these things, it's easy to overdo it. And it's nice to be able to throw it in once in a while. So WDR, all majors. What's WDR, Jerry? Trying to work that out. Oh, Walk, Don't Run is all majors, of course. And you typed Walk, Don't Ruin, which we're just about to do. We're just about to ruin this. So let me give you the logic of how it works together, and then you'll see how easy it is to switch it into different keys. And then I posted a link, which I'll post again here, for the song One Meatball, which is another one that uses this exact same riff. In fact, I'll play it just a little bit for you. It's a little bit different. It's an E. Well, the little man walked up and down to find an eating place in town. He read the menu through and through to see what 15 cents could do. Oh, one meatball, no spaghetti, one meatball, no spaghetti. He could afford but one meatball. And good silly little song that I got from Lil Rev, the great folk player. There's that link. I just posted it. That particular song has some nice variety in it. So that's why I'm passing that one in particular along. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a walk right down the scale. That's why I think this is cool, because it's so simple and yet it has such a distinct sound. So let's go back to the one that I demonstrated with D minor. D minor, ceiling to floor, just to make sure everybody's got it. 2, 2, 1, open. All right, so let me give you the sound of it again. D minor, C, B flat, A. So let's do it backwards. It's easier to count up the alphabet than to count down the alphabet for most of us. So A, B flat, C, D minor. So except for the first one, they're all major chords. The first one is a minor chord. But apart from that, you're just walking right down the scale. D minor, C, B flat, A. Again, D minor, C, B flat, A. So does that make sense? I know for most of you guys here, that makes complete sense. We're moving down the scale a step at a time. D minor, C, B flat, A. So what's kind of fun about that is that because you're moving right down the notes, you can also move right down the neck with our good old familiar movable chord shapes. Add the D on the first string. Yep, good comment from Dr. Todd. And in fact, I think that's more the way I do it in one meatball, as you'll see in a minute. So here it is with open shapes: D minor, C, B flat, A. Now the trouble with that is there's no correlation from one shape to the next. There is correlation from one chord name to the next because, like I said, you're going down the scale. D, C, B, A. So it's D minor, C, B flat, A. But if you do it with movable chords, it goes from the D minor, C, remember we're going alphabetically. If you play a C up here, third fret, B flat is the same shape, and A is the same shape. So you can do it almost without thinking. So that's it. That's what I want to show you. I'm going to move it into another key. I'll move it into the one meatball key and walk through it with you there. So here it's going to be E minor is our key. So let's think it through. We're going to walk down the alphabet, down the scale. E, D, C, B. It's easier to come back up probably. B, C, D, E. B, C, D, E. I always second guess myself. Every time I talk about something technical, I second guess myself. It's something as simple as counting through the alphabet. All right, so now in the correct order that we're playing, we're going backwards through the alphabet. E minor, D, C, B. Now, again, even though the logic is sound and the logic is simple, the chord shapes have no correlation to each other. E minor, D, C, B. But again, if you use movable shapes, you can go up to D here, or let's do a closed off D that way, because that was not a D that I just showed you. So that's that same shape we were using before. Remember? A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, and at fret 5, it becomes the D. So now we're in the key of E minor, E for elephant. And we can do the exact same walk down. Once again, E minor, 5th fret, 3rd fret, 2nd. You almost don't need to know the names if you're doing it by shape. You don't need to know the names if you're doing it by shape. And it's always going to resolve on the first chord. So my hope in showing this to you is that, first of all, it's just a neat sounding little groove that you can get going. And because it's so logical, you can easily shift it up or down into any key to work with any song that you're working on. Mr. Bailey is here. Nice to see you. Hi, Peter. So be sure to take a look at the link that I posted over in the live chat area. That will give you a download of the PDF of the song One Meatball. And what's happening there, I'll just give you a real quick run through and then leave this open for questions. It's asking us to do the same movement with 7th chords. So what I've been showing you so far has been the first chord is minor and then all the rest are major. We're going to do the first chord minor, same as before, and then all the rest as 7th chords. So E minor, D7, C7, B. And the moving shape is just a bar plus 1. So that's like your A7 goes to a B flat 7, B7, and the same idea, you just move it up the neck. So it's a D7 at fret 5 and a C7 at fret 3. So from E minor, and what you'll see in the notation is actually we're getting that sound for our second chord, and that's an E minor 7. It's giving us the note of movement that we want. C7, B7. And then you're into the song. So it's that little riff all the way through the song. But it's a funny little song. It's got a nice little riff at the beginning that comes right off the E minor chord. Like I said, this is from Little Rev, and I've tried to clean it up a little bit and add in the chord shapes for you, so you see where they change within the tablature, within the introduction. But here, I'll play it for you. I'm not sure if I'm playing it exactly right. I can't read it off my screen and pay attention to my fingers at the same time. But it's something like... that's the B7. It always goes back to that B7, but the notes I'm playing come out of the E minor. And back into it. You got one meatball and no spaghetti, one meatball and no spaghetti, one meatball and no spaghetti. He could afford but one meatball. And you can add the little riff in between verses. So recording. So anyway, One Meatball uses that exact little walk down that we've been talking about today. it adds in some nice variations on top of it, where you can take a very simple, very repetitive, almost monotonous series of chords and jazz them up a little bit and add some variety to the song that way. So, one meat blab. So that's what I wanted to show you today. I wanted to show you how you can use your logic, your brain, and your heart together to work your way through this very familiar sounding riff or walk down, whatever you want to call it, and how you can apply it to some pretty well-known songs, including a not very well-known song, One Meatball, which after you play it a few times will become very well-known to you and anyone in your household, because it's really kind of addictive and it's hard to stop playing once you start. How does one determine the sequence of chords to play? Well, for this particular sequence, you determine it by just believing what I just told you, which is it follows that very predictable pattern. It goes from the one minor and then walks down the scale. So in E goes down the alphabet to D, to C, to B. Whichever chord you start on is going to be the minor version, and then you walk down 3 more steps in major chords. So I hope that answers your question, Harrington's Pub. If you're asking more generally, how does one determine the sequence of chords? Obviously, that depends on, many, many factors. Some of them are very predictable, and that's kind of what we're talking about here today. Happy to take any other questions. I'm going to leave on the recording for another minute and then shut down the recording so we can talk freely if we want to. Oh, that's Eileen. Glad to have you here, Eileen. Yes. So I hope that answered your question. I will say in parting, thanks to everybody who manages to make it to these things live. Nice to see some new faces here and some old faces, nothing personal. Let me see what Todd says here. The nice clean muting on the first E minor. Might be advisable to find it with the 4th string on the B instead of the G. 4th string. I'm not following that, Todd. Are you suggesting finding another shape up the neck? Okay. What would the fingering for that be, Todd? Do you know it off the top of your head? Oh, I think I know what you're saying. Where you double up on fret 4. That would cover all 4 strings, and I think that's what Todd is talking about to allow you to get a nice sharp mute. And that is absolutely fine. I think you know me well enough by now to know that I always take the easy way out whenever I can. When there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it this way. The only problem that I see with it is that it's a little more fussy to get into that shape because of the way your fingers have to go. Personally, I do it that way with my little finger and then ring finger. You could also do it 3 in a row and reach over with the little finger, but that's even fussier to me. So what I tend to do with the E minor anyway is just touch it with first of all, it's okay for it to ring out musically. It works. But if you want to be able to mute it, I very often will just touch my thumb here to stop it from ringing out. I feel like that gives me a little more speed. All right. We've got Dr. Todd giving us sound music notes. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. That is the D minor shape moved. Yeah, actually, that's a really good way to think about it, Todd. If you think about the E minor as the D minor moved up and closed off, if you move it up, you've got to close off string 1. And, that's a really great lesson to bear in mind all the time, is that all the positions up the neck are based on those very familiar first position chords. But the shapes wind up being so different as you struggle to close off all the strings that the relationship often becomes hard to detect. So a very smart way is what Todd's talking about here. Start with the first position and move it up. D minor becomes D sharp minor. You've got to close it off though at string 1. And there you can see as you move it up one more, D sharp minor becomes a fully closed E minor. And you can see the relationship to the original D minor shape by doing that way. Personally for me, I think of the E minor shape as its own shape. And that's what I'm warning you about, that you lose the relationship to the first position. It's not necessary to always have that in mind. But as I was just saying, it was hard for me to close off the E minor. But by thinking of it as the D minor moved up, it might be easier to think of closing it off here rather than closing it off here. Whew, long lecture for a short topic. Your limit. Yeah, so you might very well like the sound of shaping it that way better too. So it's pretty great that on a little ukulele with only 4 strings, we've got all these options that we can be considering. Thank you, Todd, for the musical input there. I'm going to shut off recording now. I'm going to say thanks to everybody for showing up, and thanks for those who are watching in replay. See you next time.